Hello, everyone. How's it going? Azren, the language nerd here. I'm the owner of the Calgary Language Nerds. We are a business that teaches a wide variety of foreign languages to people of all ages and, of course, all levels of fluency. So, regardless of if you are a child, an adult, a teenager, a beginner level speaker, intermediate level speaker, advanced level speaker, it doesn't matter. We have a tutor that can help you out. And this is another video in this series on how to learn another language. Without further ado, let's begin. Now today, here we go. Today we're going to go to family and we're going to talk about that. This is part two of level two of this language learning course. So of course, we all love our family, and so we're going to focus on learning how to talk about them today. So the first section, as always, is a vocabulary section. Level 2 has kind of the same structure in every single unit. So the first section is always vocabulary. So you're going to book a lesson or book a time with your target, with your language partner or your tutor, and you're going to ask them how to say the following words, which I will show you momentarily. You may also choose to look it up on YouTube or on Google. That's always an option too. And then you're going to write them in, whether you write it into this workbook, if you choose to purchase this workbook, which is an option, or alternatively, you can simply write it in your own notes. This workbook, by the way, there's also a digital version. I can send you a digital version where you can actually type in this workbook. It doesn't have to be a print out version. You can actually type in it should you choose to. Now, when it comes to family, one thing that's very important to realize is that every single language views family vocabulary quite differently. So in English, for instance, we have words like mom, we have words like dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, cousin, nephew, niece, granddaughter, grandson, son, daughter, child. These are some of the main family words we tend to use, but the reality is that other languages construe family vocabulary quite differently. So in Gujarati, a language I speak, for example, you don't really have one word, for instance, for aunt and uncle. You have a couple of different words, actually. It depends on if it's on your mom's side, on your dad's side. There's various words. And so what you're possibly going to have to do as you're learning these family words is you may have to realize that there are more family words in the language you're trying to learn. And sometimes perhaps there isn't a great translation to English. Maybe there isn't a great single word for the word that you're trying to learn. And so that's important here. I want the concept that the concept is what you're trying to learn. The concept of your father's brother or your mother's brother. What do you call that person? And if there's multiple words, well, what do you call it? How you have to figure out how the language perceives it. Maybe they perceive it as, oh, it's mom's younger sister, and mom's younger sister is called this. Oh, this is dad's younger sister. Well, dad's younger sister is a different word. Oh, and dad's older sister is actually this word. And dad's oldest sister is another word. There might be lots of different words depending on the language. So be prepared for that in advance. Languages like Spanish, for example, or French or things like that, you're not going to have that issue. It's going to work reasonably well and translate quite similarly to how it would in English for the most part. But in other languages, I would not be surprised if this part actually takes a long time. So if the family structures are quite advanced and quite challenging and it's really confusing, just as everything else in this curriculum, when you encounter something that's overwhelming and challenging, remember the whole rules and grammar equals salt analogy. We've referred back to this a million times already, right? And this, I think, this can apply with that rule here, and this can fall into the category where learn enough for you to start to get by. Learn some of the basic words like mom, dad, brother, sister. Learn some basic things. And the ones that are starting to become overwhelming for you, those are things that you can simply learn at a later time. You can maybe learn it here. I mean, maybe you get the introduction here, but then you revisit it and try to learn it at a later date. And that's perfectly acceptable. For context, for example, I've been learning Mandarin for 6 years now as I'm recording this video. And I'm pretty good at family words, but there's a lot of family words I'm still not very familiar with, even though they're technically very basic. And that's perfectly normal. I will learn them over time, and that's totally cool. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. As I've written here, if your target language is more family words than English, use the additional notes section, the additional notes sheets, additional notes sheet in this workbook to write them down. So I've written the additional note sheet for those who purchase the workbook is right back over here, right at the end. Okay. Okay. I have an activity here where you draw your own family tree. So this is what I'd like you to do. Is it's a nice writing practice. You draw your own family tree and you label each of your family members' names with the family title that they have in your target language. So you might draw something like, maybe you draw yourself over here. Maybe it's like you have a box up here. Let's make it bigger actually. Here's a box for maybe like whatever, one grandparent forever. For example, you write their name. So my grandpa's name is Vinay, for example. Right, you write his last name. I'm not going to write the full last name, VD. Then you write underneath abuelo. Right, in Spanish, abuelo means grandpa. Right, abuelo. Then you draw it over. You draw it to your grandma. You write abuela. Right, abuela is grandma in Spanish. You write the person's name up top, right? Brafula, etc. Brafula. And you draw out your family tree on this page here. As usual, if you're purchasing the workbooks, you'll just have this paper provided for you, and you can fill this out digitally, or of course you can print it out. For those of you who do not purchase the workbooks, that's perfectly fine. You'll just do it in your own notebook or do it wherever whatever you use for your notes. We have an additional language practice here, which is with possessive adjectives. So in English, we have these 7 possessive adjectives. We have my, your, his, her, its, our, their. Okay. Those are the main ones that we have. So we might have his car, her dog, its, well, we don't use its that often, I suppose, do we? Well, we do, but whatever the case is. Our house, their brother, my favorite food, etc. And I like pairing this with the family unit because with family, we often say my mother, my dad, my sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, his. Like we combine these quite commonly when we talk about family. We do pair possessive adjectives with family words frequently. So what I've done here is I've created a simple table for you in the workbook for you to write down the translation of my, your, his, her, its, our, and their, the main possessive adjectives that we have, at least in English. Of course, to learn these, you might simply Google it or YouTube it. You may speak with your language exchange partner or your tutor, and you just ask them, hey, how do you say these? Don't forget that your target language may have more than these possessive adjectives. That's very common. So, for example, let's pull from languages that I speak. If we look at Gujarati, there are 4 words for my. Maru, maro, mari, mara. There's 4. There are 8 words for your. There are, this one's not quite as complicated. Well, actually, wait, it kind of is actually. It's a bit, our his and her is a little bit different in Gujarati. We have 4 words, but all 4 of them kind of mean his, her, and its. So it's like, it's not 4 for his, 4 for her, and 4 for its. It's just 4 that kind of covers all of those. So it's not like 12 or anything like that. So Gujarati is it's a bit different. And so you may need the second sheet here, and you may need to make multiple copies of the second sheet where you need to write down what all the possessive adjectives are and how they work. You need to almost be an interviewer in a way, especially if you're asking your language exchange partner or your tutor. You may need to become very good at asking them very specific questions to help figure out what all the different possessive adjectives are, how to use them, because they might not know. They might be like, oh yeah, here's one word, but sometimes it's this. And you're like, well, what's the difference between A and B? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, you might need to ask them lots of questions and figure it out. You may need to become very good at Googling and trying to figure out on Google and YouTube what the difference is. You may be using a language learning app or something like that in tandem with this program here. So maybe the app does a good job explaining it. But ultimately, understand that there may be more or less possessive adjectives in your target language than the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that we have in English. Okay. Ooh, this tea is quite bitter. I let it steep too long. Here's our writing practice for this part of the book here. So you're going to write down each of the family members you see in this photo here. Some of them are up for interpretation because you might not know, like you might pick son for this little guy here with the green jacket, and then you might pick like sister for the person beside him, and then you might pick like babies for the ones on the ground. Like this is up for interpretation, which is totally fine. But you're going to write down each of the family members you see in this photo and where they are located. If you remember from level 1, I'll actually open up level 1, so I'm going to show it to you. How to learn a language, level 1. If we look back at level 1, you may remember that right near the end of level 1, you learned prepositions of place. In, on, beside, to the left, to the right, near, far, above, below, at, under, in front, behind, right? Various different prepositions of place. So this is where you're going to get to practice those alongside your family member words. So you might say something like, the grandpa is beside the grandma. The 2 grandkids are on the grass. There might be some, what happened there? Hang on, I think something happened. Okay, there we go. There may possibly be, what do you say? There may possibly be some new words that you need. Maybe you don't know how to say grass or something like that, in which case you may use an online dictionary. You may use Google or YouTube to figure that out. You may ask your tutor or your language exchange partner. If you want to, you may even do this activity twice or multiple times. I actually recommend doing this multiple times, right? Where you take some of your own family pictures, take different family pictures that in your family, and write out where people are located in the picture, who's behind who, who's beside who, who's doing this, who's doing that, right? You'll make a much deeper connection if it's your own family than this random picture here. But I know some of you won't actually find your own family picture, so I provided a picture for you to use for those of you that are not actually going to go out of your way and find that family picture to use. This is the paper you can use for those who purchase the workbook. To do what? Oh, to do this family photo exercise. And lastly, we have our speaking practice activity. Every single one of these units has a speaking practice activity. So you're going to have a discussion with your speaking partner / tutor about your families. Here are some questions that I would like you to ask. You're going to say, tell me about your family. And your tutor language partner will tell you about their family. You want them to ask you the same question so you can tell them about your family. Do you have any siblings? What do they do? What do they do for work is what I really mean to say here. What do they do for work? That's going to be a great way to practice jobs and family words. If you remember in level 1, I've tried to build this in a way where everything builds on what you did before. I've tried my best. If you remember in level 1, we learned somewhere, here we go, some basic job words, right? There's obviously we didn't learn every single job in the world, but we've learned some different job related words. So you ask, what did they do? Where are your parents from? What hobbies do your family members have? And then of course, I want you to invent your own. I want you to invent your own questions. Okay. I want you to do this multiple times. I think you should do this at least twice, probably twice, I think, because you're going to fumble your way through the words. There's going to be a lot of words you don't know. And so doing this kind of activity multiple times will be good for you because then it builds that habit of talking about your family and doing it more and more fluently each time. And each time you do it, like, especially if you do this with different people, because maybe you have multiple language exchange partners, or maybe one tutor and some language exchange partners. When you talk to different people, for example, and you ask different people, for instance, what do your siblings do? Well, one person might say that, oh, My brother's a teacher and my sister's an engineer. But then person two might say, my sister's a nurse and my brother's a doctor. You're going to hear all these different job words and you're going to really expand your vocabulary. I would recommend when you do your speaking exercise that you write, and this is throughout the whole program, you need to be writing down the words you're learning. You need to write them down. Okay. This is not just in your head, not only in your head. Get them written down. You'll have lots of notes. They're going to get kind of disorganized. That's okay. That's not a problem. You'll have lots and lots of notes. That's cool. No worries. It's actually a good thing. It doesn't have to be super organized per se, but the act of writing it down will help. And what you're trying to do is it's not like, it's really hard to explain. I wish I could put you in my brain so you could like feel what I'm feeling even in this moment. You have to physically force your brain to make connections to the language while you're learning it. So when you're doing these speaking activities, like you need to push your brain to make connections to the language. It's not just like, oh, he's a doctor. Okay, cool. And move on. No. It's like, oh, he's a doctor. Okay, what does a doctor look like? Oh, that's what doctors look like. Oh, that's how you say doctor. Doctor. Okay. Oh, my mom's a doctor. Oh, interesting. Oh, doctor. Doctor. Interesting. You say it to yourself a few times and you really sit with it and you try and make those connections go as deep as possible in your brain so that you can recall them as quickly as possible in the future. And so that's our speaking exercise. Last but not least, we have our listening exercise, aka our video practice. And you're going to watch it's called Meet My Family. And you're going to watch some family vlogs. There's lots of family vloggers. So vlogging, let me stop my screen share here and show you. In fact, let me actually put it back. Here, let's put this back for a moment. Hit pause. I want you to read this page, then unpause the video and listen to me talk. Okay, so hit pause now. All right, welcome back. So now that you've read this page, let's actually go into YouTube and let me show you kind of what you're looking for here. Okay, so you're going to go into YouTube. Let's open this up. Let's share my screen again. Here we go. Here's YouTube. And you're going to search in your target language, Meet My Family. So for example, for learning English, you literally search Meet My Family. And okay, let's see here. Here's a random video posted 2 weeks ago. Meet my family. And this guy's in I don't know what he's talking about, but he's going to talk about his family. Some of these videos are not really that relevant. Like this is some Resident Evil, looks like a video game kind of video. So maybe that's not ideal. Looks like this looks like a game show, Game of Life 2. So that's not good. My family music video, that's not what you want. Meet My Family Saturday Night Live might be hard to understand because like it's a comedy skit, but maybe it's fun to watch. You might pick some stuff up from it. Here's one right here, 4 hours ago. The last Ramadan vlog, Meet My Family and come shopping with me. Right? You may even try and adjust the wording because maybe you don't get the videos you're looking for. You may switch this up and maybe it's not Meet My Family. Maybe you just say something like my family, right? And see what comes up. Okay. Some stuff will not be relevant and that's okay, right? A lot of this is not relevant. We can skip ahead. I'm not sure the serpent's tooth is, right? Maybe you're like, okay, this isn't really that helpful. I'm not seeing much here. Maybe you got to search people in my family. So you're going to need help. You have to search in your target language. So if you're learning Spanish, you've got to search mi familia, right? And again, sometimes you search and you may not find something quite useful, right? There's not much here. I don't see many, normal kind of videos people are making where they're introducing their family. This one actually here, 24 horas espiando a mi familia. Oh, so you might need help thinking of the different search queries and you may need to talk to your tutor about that to help find the right kinds of videos, right? You might need to search las personas en mi familia, the people in my family. Okay, out of luck here as well. You might need to say, okay, I don't know, conocer a mi familia, which means meeting my family or getting to know my family. Okay. Looks like we've aprende los miembros de la familia. This is like learning family, right? Learning family words in Spanish. ¿Qué tanto conoces a tu familia? Oh, how well do you know your family? That's what that means. So you might need help from your language partner to find adequate videos where it's just natural people talking about their family. Right? Oh, here we go. Fui a México. This is pretty interesting. Fui a México a conocer a mi familia por primera vez en mi vida. She went to Mexico to meet her family for the first time. That's interesting. If you don't have help from your language partner, you can just, if you're like, man, is this, if you're asking yourself, is this the right video for you to watch? Copy this. Oops. You copy this here. You go into Google. You search on Google Spanish to English in this case. You hit paste. And then you can see, okay, what's this video about? Does that make sense? If you're unsure on like what the titles mean. I do this all the time when I'm learning languages. So as a recap, let's just put the other thing back on the screen. So you're looking for videos where it's people talking reasonably naturally. If you can find something that's designed for learners of your language, maybe in an application on YouTube, if you can, that's fantastic. And will be a nice, it'll be slower and easier. And that's really great. I'm not opposed to that, right? Maybe in your application, if you're using one, you'll find great stuff. But I do encourage you to watch things that are at a native level speed. And remember, if you don't understand everything, because you won't, you're gonna understand 10%, and that's fine. All you're trying to do, I'm going to say this a million times because I know I've heard all the reasons why people don't do things. And I know all the common things people say as to why they can't do this step. And no. Let's get things right here. We're going to open recent. Let's go back to level 0. Remember in level 0, we talked about this. When you're watching videos, right? As a beginner, intermediate, the goal is not always to try and understand everything that's going on. The goal is to write down those 10 to 20 timestamps for words and phrases you understand for low beginners. Think you understood, but you're not sure, right? Don't understand, but you want to know what they mean because you kept hearing it over and over, right? And this one won't quite apply quite yet. And then you're going to ask your language exchange partner or use a dictionary to figure out what those things mean. And you write them down. You practice using them in your speaking sessions. You write some practice sentences with them. You try to use them. Maybe you do some flashcards with them. Does that make sense? All right. It's now 8 p.m. I have to head out. And actually, we're done that. Oh, actually, sorry. Share my screen one last time. It's 8 p.m. That takes us to the end of that chapter there. We're going to start with work life next time. So I do have a class that actually starts right now anyways. That's perfect timing. That was amazing how that worked out. We did one chapter in the video, like on the nose. It's 8 p.m. now. I teach a class right now. So goodbye, everyone. Thank you for watching this. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.